Okay, so welcome to NEA Part 1B. There's a second section to the analysing the contextual challenge at the beginning. So we're going to start again with another do now task. So stakeholder being the key word. It was talked about briefly in the previous section. I just think it needs to be clarified a little bit what it means by stakeholder. So we just have a look at the etymology. So according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word stakeholder first appeared in 1708, meaning the holder of a wager. A stake, a stake is that which is placed at hazard, although the OEAD is uncertain where that usage of stake came from. Stakeholder, anyone who has an interest in what you are doing. So definition then, try and think about what you think a definition of a stakeholder might be. And I'll just give you 30 seconds to think of that and try and get your answer written down. Okay, so this is what I've got. I actually got this off the internet, and this is the definition that I found. So a stakeholder is a party that has an interest in a company or product and can either affect or be affected by the business or product. Okay, so it has an interest, so in a company or a product. Stakeholder being kind of like not necessarily the person who's going to use it, but someone who also has an interest in the product. It could also be the user, but it's mainly those that have an interest in it as well. So examples next. We'll have a look at examples. So can you give any examples of people who aside from the ones that are using it, who else might have an interest? Give an example of who else might have an interest in a product. Okay, so this is the example that I've come up with. So products purchased by a parent for a child. The parent is the stakeholder because they have an interest in making sure it's safe and appropriate for them to use. All right, so characteristics of the word stakeholder, kind of describing words, or if you took a thesaurus, kind of what are other words to describe the word stakeholder? So have a think about that, please, and just write down a list of kind of almost word association, or similar words, things that link to the word stakeholder. So these are the words that I came up with, and I just had a look again on the internet and looked at the kind of thesaurus, other words for stakeholder. So the collaborator, colleague, partner, shareholder, associate, contributor, participant, team member. So those are all kind of associated words that links directly to stakeholder. Okay. So yeah, so anybody that has an interest in a product, apart from maybe yourself. So non-example then, someone who wouldn't be classified as a stakeholder. This is tricky because technically it's not necessarily straightforward. So try and have a think about first in terms of non-example. Okay, so non-example then. So I'll put down a baby is always the user of a product of products. They don't buy or sell them. I mean, arguably they are stakeholders because they have an interest in the product. Just not exactly sure exactly of a good non-example, but that's the closest I could come up with. So we're going to move on now to the next stage. Okay, so we're going to watch another video, and this one's talking more specifically about analysing the contextual challenge. Again, if you can write down 5 things that you've learned from the video, then we can discuss afterwards.
So it's that time of year again where year 10s going into year 11 need to start thinking about their NEA, which is the non-examined assessment. Each exam board releases like a pre-release of information about it. I work with AQA. AQA release a pre-release that is 3 statements or 3 sentences each year that are the basis for your theme. And the main thing we're going to think about today is how to dissect that theme and how to come up with a problem that you're going to solve, first of all, a location, so where is this going to take place, and a client. It's very important to have a client and establish all of these things before you start, because there are a lot of marks for the feedback from your consumer and for you making sure that you produce something that actually solves a problem. So starting with the problem, as opposed to just an idea of what you'd like to make, is a really good way of ensuring what you produce for your NEA is a high quality piece of work that's going to tick all the boxes and get you the grade you deserve. So we're going to go through a little PowerPoint looking at some of the things you should be doing for your first page and as your introduction for your NEA. Cheers. Okay, so we're looking at last year's context here as our example. I don't want to pick apart the latest context for you. That's something you need to do at home yourself or with your teacher. But if we use last year's context as a basis, then you can have a good understanding of how you should be going about it. So providing a safe and comfortable home was the context we chose last year. So here you can see all the assessment objectives. We're looking at section A, which is worth 10 marks. And it's research essentially, but we're identifying and investigating design possibilities. Here you can see published by AQA a sort of Gantt chart of the amount of time you should approximately be spending on this. So you can see it is about 4 hours work in total. It's 10 marks. You're supposed to spend 40 hours on this piece of work. So 10 marks equates to 4 hours of that time. So make sure the work you do is concise and highly relevant. So we're identifying the problem and looking at potential opportunities. This can be quite specific at this stage, or it could be quite open if you're finding it hard to identify the exact thing you want to make, and investigate. So as it says there, pursuing ideas and gathering information related to the context. So here you can see what I would give to my students for this first lesson. You've got a level ladder, you've got various descriptions on the right hand side of what it looks like to achieve work of those different levels. And we've also got the top level description from AQA of what they're looking for, with the main points highlighted in bold. So identifying design possibilities, making sure that we look at economic and social challenges, making sure the work is concise, and using a range of techniques, primary and secondary. A primary piece of research is something where the data you have gathered yourself, so for example, a survey or a questionnaire or interview that you've produced. A secondary is where you're referencing pieces of research material that already exist. So for example, using a website to look at products similar to what you want to make and the prices they sell for and the type of clients that they are designed for. So This year's theme is teenage lifestyle, and I have updated my PowerPoint to include the word teenage lifestyle. Other than that, we are still looking at a safe and comfortable home. So on the left-hand side, there are 3 examples of different levels of the first page that we would expect for the NEA. And we've got 3 paragraphs and a mind map. So you've got the problem, location, and the client. So the first thing you need to do is spend some time doing the mind map, developing an idea of what the problem could potentially be by expanding upon that theme. So again, I'm using last year's theme here, so I don't give you too many indications about what you should do for this year's project. And I'm just going with breaking it down into a few sections and thinking of any possible ideas that pop into my head first of all. So I'm looking at safety, I'm thinking about keeping things safe from children, things you need to keep away from them. Then I'm thinking about the safety of how things are securely mounted, so bookshelves, how they can be attached to the wall, smoke alarms, monitors. I'm breaking off with some ideas now, looking at making it comfortable and who the client could be. By the end of this, I want to have a rough idea of the type of thing I could make. So I've got a few lists of actual products, but I've also just got general problems to solve and themes. So I'm looking at the clients. They could be a parent, it could be a child. That means I could interview one of each and just trying to get a very broad spectrum of ideas. Now you're going to do your first page. We've done the task analysis. We're going to fix that on. Hopefully that's helped you start thinking about things and you've got an idea of the type of thing you're going to make, the location and the client. So on my previous videos, my Kaizen problem solving video, my problem would have been the inability to mount a camera safely and securely in a workshop. That's the problem I'm solving. The location would have been an outside building, workshop space with power, wooden walls, and a workbench that causes vibrations. The client is a person who works in a workshop who wishes to produce YouTube tutorial videos and mount the camera in a variety of different ways. So that's one example of how you can answer those questions with that specific example. The research tasks listed below we'll come to in a later video. They are tasks that you're outlining that you will do in future, like a research plan. A couple of examples here that were provided by AQA of this first section. So here you can see the problem was the transportation of equipment to the beach, and it shows someone very laden with materials. So it's showcased very much as a problem that you will solve later. That way, as you develop your design ideas, they can all be tuned towards this idea, rather than you saying at the beginning, I'm going to make a bag. It's very hard to then prove that you've met all of the requirements of the brief if you start in that way. So we've looked at the content for lesson 1. The most important thing I would say in this process is make something and identify a problem that you are interested in. If you're not interested in what you're making, you are not going to find any of this particularly fun. So try and find something where you're working with a client that you know, that you like, that you're working collaboratively with them. Maybe it's something for your household where your parents are your client or a sibling is a client, something you're going to benefit from in the future. And make sure, most importantly, you discuss this with your peers, discuss it with your teacher, discuss it with your client, so that you can get all those ideas out there and you don't just launch straight into deciding you're going to make something that you're then stuck with that idea for the next 40 hours. Good luck and cheers.
Okay, so from the video, this is what I've learned. So the exam board will release 3 contextual challenges. You will need to try and solve a problem. Section A is worth 10 marks and it's called identifying and investigating design possibilities. It is recommended you spend 4 hours on this section. It should be concise and highly relevant. So not just looking for things that, you know, random. You got to really think it through and make sure you just get information that specifically you need to help you to solve the problem. Write 3 paragraphs, problem, location, and client, also a mind map relating to the challenge. Okay, so we'll have a look at this contextual challenge information and then we're answering these questions. I say it might be better for you to answer them as it goes along. Just listen carefully.
Contextual challenges. Try to avoid any preconceived ideas and keep an open mind to other possibilities as your ideas evolve. There are no restrictions on what materials to use, but it is suggested you focus on an area of particular interest and strength. You will need to apply specialist knowledge, understanding and skills to realize your ideas. Here is an example of a contextual challenge. The interpretation of color. Color can be used as a means of communication and education, for cultural and aesthetic reasons, but can also represent emotion, fear, excitement, anger, joy. Explore the ways color can influence choice and use this information to design and manufacture a product with color being central to its function or purpose. There are many ways to interpret this challenge. For example, color can be used to enhance the home, lighting, soft furnishing, furniture, control devices. Color is educational, informative, primary bright colors on children's toys, warning mechanisms and devices, display products, branding.
Okay, so try and answer the 3 questions in 30 seconds. Okay, so what should you try and avoid? Preconceived ideas. So trying to keep an open mind. What materials is it suggested you focus on? An area of particular interest and strength. So usually it's the area that within your class that you have been focusing on. So timbers or textiles, or metalwork or whatever else it might be. What will you need to apply? Apply specialist knowledge, understanding and skills. So you need to be able to talk confidently about the different materials that you'll be using to make your product. Okay, so have a look at this next bit. Just listen carefully.
The important point is to explore and consider as many ideas as possible. Consider a few options in a little more detail and from that follow a more defined route. There are multiple starting points from which to analyze and consider the contextual challenges. The more effort you make at this stage, the more successful you will be in identifying multiple starting points. Whichever way you choose to start, the important part is to record all your thoughts.
Okay, so on to these 3 questions. Just have a go, please. 30 seconds. Okay, so what is the important point? To explore and consider as many ideas as possible. How many ways are there to start from, which to analyze and consider the contextual challenge? There are multiple starting points, so that's just there. Whichever way you choose to start, the important part is to do what? Record all your thoughts. So making sure you're writing loads of notes down all the way through and explaining what you're doing. Okay, have a look at this section on context of design.
Context of a design. The context of a design incorporates many things such as the surroundings or environment where it will be used, the different users and stakeholders, the purpose of the end product, social, cultural, moral, and environmental considerations. A product that is designed properly within context will fulfill its purpose exactly, giving the users and stakeholders what they require with a minimum amount of interaction or inconvenience. If design takes place without consideration of the context, it will result in a final product that does not fully meet the needs of the user or stakeholders.
Okay, so it said stakeholders quite a few times there, and it's in bold. So the user bit's fairly clear. So the person that's it's designed for, who's going to be using it, or the users. So it could be like a teenager, but then his brother might also use it, or his sister might also use it. The stakeholder is someone who also has an added interest in the product, like the parents who are buying it for the child, or the shop that's selling it. Obviously they're interested because they don't want to sell something that's not linked to their style and the way in which they want the products to look within their shop. So it's got to be suitable for their design and their choices, and a good quality product so that people come back to their shop. So can you have a go answering these questions, please? Okay, so what does the context of the design incorporate? Surroundings or environments where it will be used, different users, stakeholders, the purpose of the end product, social, cultural, moral and environmental considerations. What is good about a product that has been designed properly within context? Fulfills its purpose exactly, giving the user and the stakeholders what they require. And what is bad about designing a product that has not been designed properly within context? A final product that does not fully meet the needs of the user or the stakeholder. All right, so context maps. There's just two more sections. This bit where it's talking about the context map linking nicely onto the start of the coursework. So this is this first bit, and then we'll answer the questions. Okay, so we'll just have a look at so this is the second to last section, which is talking about the context map and task analysis. And these sections are really important for the starting point of the contextual analyze and the contextual challenge. So we have a look at these and then we'll answer some of the questions.
Context map task analysis. A useful method of considering the context of a design is to create a context map or task analysis showing all the possible factors that could or should influence the design. For example, who are the primary users, secondary users, and other stakeholders? For example, their age, gender, physical mobility. Why is there a need for this product? What is the problem? What are the restrictions on the design? Where will the product be used? What type of environment will it be used in? For example, is it for use indoors or outdoors?
Okay, so have a go at answering these questions and just try your best to get them done as quickly as you can. Okay, so the first one, what is a useful method of considering the context of a design? You're creating a context map or task analysis showing all the possible factors that could or should influence the design. Who could you consider when analysing the context? So the primary, secondary and other stakeholders. Can you give an example of who you could consider when analysing the context of design? So teenage boys, or it could be like adults or babies or the elderly. What does it mean by why when analysing a contextual design? Why is there a need for the product? What is the problem? What are the restrictions on the design? What does it mean by where when analysing the context of the design? Where will the product be used? What type of environment will it be used in? Okay, just the last one on the reading of the information, and then we'll just talk to get started on the talking about the coursework and what you need to do.
What must the product do? What is its primary function? Does it have just one main purpose, or must it fulfill a number of different requirements? When is the product used? Is the product used at certain times of day, night? Is it used at certain times of the year, then stored for long periods of time between uses? How is the product meant to function? How will it be stored, transported, maintained? For example, will it have to function without making any noise?
Okay, so have a go at answering these questions. You don't have to obviously write all that out, just write down some examples for these bits. All right, so what does it mean by what when analysing the context of the design? What must the product do? What is the primary function? What does it have just one main purpose, or must it fulfill a number of different requirements? And what does it mean by when? So when is the product used? Is the product used in certain times of the day or night? Is it used for certain times of the year and stored for long periods between? And how? So what does it mean by how when analysing the context? How is the product meant to function, and how will it be stored, transported and maintained?